On this week's episode, we had the pleasure of speaking to an absolute legend of American fencing. So if you want to learn about the ups, the downs, how to keep pushing, how to inspire the next generation, and how to build a pyramid, then this week's episode's for you.
Thanks, Priya, for all that you do. Without your support, we wouldn't be able to have awesome podcast episodes like this one. Thanks.
We rolling?
We are rolling.
Okay.
Ari, in typical fashion, I say we banter a bit about the previous episode. How do you feel having gone through that?
I think it was a great time. You know, we had our first guest that wasn't a épée fencer or a men's épéist like ourselves, and I think it was pretty smooth. We did our research. We had a good time. We had some fun, had some laughs, and ultimately it just further solidified, in my head at least, the why we're doing this for the podcast, not just the why for the fencing, right? But the why for the podcast. And it was a lot of fun. How about you? What do you think?
I had a really good time. I think we had some very interesting conversations, different considerations of things that I hadn't really, we get to the whys and the reasons. And I think Bryce had a lot of stuff that I hadn't considered, and we had some very good conversations there. My teeth kind of hurt the next day from the ice cream. That was a lot of cold stuff just on my teeth for an extended period of time.
We're going to do it again, so get ready.
Not today. Not today. Do it again.
Thank God. Yeah.
But very excited for today. Very excited for our guest. I think having such a high caliber of an athlete, such a legend in the room is definitely going to bring out some conversation that I'm excited to have. And I hope we'll have a lot of fun here too.
Yeah, me too. I mean, just to feel a little better about ourselves, we had to get higher seated chairs. Yeah. So he's a little lower than us just for now, because when I read out this resume, this is just the tip of the iceberg. We're only, going to name some of the major golds that this guy has, but we're sitting in the room with, and just individual. This is, he's got much more of an accomplished resume when you add in all the team accolades. But just as an individual, we have a 5-time World Cup winner, 1-time Grand Prix champion, 5-time Pan American champion, 1-time world champion, 3-time Olympian, and 2-time NCAA champion and first-team All-American, Eli Dershwitz. Yeah, crowd goes wild. Thanks for being here with us today, Eli. It's always crazy to me to read those results out loud and to think about the fact that you've done all these amazing things, and yet at the same time, for me, you've just been a guy and a friend for a decade plus now, and it's awesome to get to interact with you and see how your mind operates with regard to our sport and success and training and mindset and just the whole 9 yards. But you're able to turn that off and just be a friend as well. And it's always been great knowing you. And it's cool that you're here with us to get to know Steven a bit better and to chat about your life. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, no, it's awesome to be here. Thanks for the invite. I love talking about fencing. I love hanging out with you guys. So I appreciate the offer. I appreciate the introduction, and happy to talk about fencing as much as you guys want.
All right.
Let's get started then.
Well, we're going to start talking about fencing, but also about you, just for me too, and for people listening in. Can you just give us your backstory? Who are you? Where are you from? Why'd you start fencing?
Yeah, how'd you find it?
Yeah, so I followed my older brother, Phil, into the sport. At about age 9, I started in suburban Boston, about 30 minutes west of Boston.
What town?
I'm from Sherburne, Massachusetts.
Sherburne, nice name.
Went to Dover-Sherburne Middle School, Dover-Sherburne High School, started fencing recreationally at Zeta Fencing, the club that I just purchased and I'm about to take over. Started in 2004, spent 17 years training under the head coach and founder, Zoran Tulam. At first, it was just a fun activity to kind of, mix with other sports I was playing. I played basketball, soccer, and lacrosse throughout middle school. And then kind of slowly over the years started building up a little bit more training, a little bit more competition. Got to high school, things kind of took off a little bit. Started doing well nationally, internationally. Got recruited to Harvard, had a great team, great support system around me. And then for the last several years since graduation, just been training professionally for the Olympics, coaching, for a few years in New York City, and now I'm moving back to Boston with my lovely fiance Karen, who we're getting married in 2 weeks, and we're about to start running Zeta.
That's awesome.
That's living the dream, man.
Yeah, that's
Living the dream.
A lot of really, really positive and exciting changes coming up for you, or currently happening, I guess.
Yeah, it's not even about, it's currently happening.
Yeah, nice. Well, I think that it's interesting. We had the same answer with Bryce, a sibling related entrance to the sport. So, you know, it's kind of easy to grow up just seeing your sibling go there, but you know, how did your brother find fencing? Like, how did fencing enter the Dershwitz, you know, ecosystem?
Yeah, so he was going to just this sports day camp over the summer that had a little bit of everything. They happened to have a recreational fencing program, very beginner introductory, but he liked it. He asked my mom if there was a club in the area. It turned out that a multiple-time Olympic coach and just one of the best coaches, you know, around had just opened up a club right next to our house, 10-minute drive. So got a little bit lucky. Sometimes you got to be a little lucky and mixed with hard work in order to get the results you want. But just growing up as a young kid at the club, going with my mom to pick him up at practice, getting to run around the floor at a young age, definitely it was something I wanted to do even before I started. And then, you know, coming up through the ranks over the years, having this older group, this older generation of mentors and people to push you, people to hold you accountable, people to make sure that you learn proper behavior and etiquette at practice. It definitely mixed with my coach's emphasis on discipline and good behavior, like definitely helped structure me into what I'd like to call a well-behaved young athlete sometimes.
Yeah.
At what point would you say you started kicking your brother's ass? Like, at what point did you sort of leave him behind?
If that moment ever came, like, we don't know.
Yeah,
We don't know.
I mean,
You're right.
I would
You could
say
be,
like he kind of retired like right after graduating college, and that was right at the time that I was like kind of taking off as like in the end of my high school career. But the last few years, he's come back over like Thanksgiving break, Christmas break, and fenced with me in the Harvard team. And you know, he's not in the same shape he used to be, but he's still got some moves. He still kind of gives some people some trouble. Coaching staff loves him because he's a little bit tricky and old fashioned. But yeah, it's been great. He really, you know, helped pave the way for me. And he's actually since moving to Iowa, taken up épée fencing.
Oh, nice.
That's awesome.
As his
Nice. He should hit us up. Is he competing or just?
Yeah, he goes to some local Iowa competitions. I believe.
Go.
I believe he earned his D.
Let's go.
He's on his way.
He's on his way. That's so cool just to hear about, you know, a fencer who hung up the cleats and is just finding their way back to the sport and experimenting with, you know, we're so specialized because we're competing at such a high level. And I know that there's, you know, one fencer currently that's doing multiple weapons at a high level, but really it's not something that's common. And it's maybe an experience that I wouldn't say we're robbed of, but we just choose not to participate in. We made jokes on our last episode about Steven doing one foil mac as a junior just for fun. But like, you know, getting to fence the other weapons is enjoyable. So it's really cool to hear that your brother is back into it and picked it up and now doing épée as a lifelong saberist.
I mean, me and my brother always promised when we were young that before we like stopped fencing for good, we would either fence Division III men's épée or Division III men's foil at Summer Nationals together. So you can lock it down here forever.
Yeah.
Like that's a promise at some point in history. I will fence Div 3 men's épée or men's foil at Summer Nationals.
Your brother's a D. He can fence Div 3 right now.
Yeah.
If he gets any better, he can't fence Div 3 and he's going to break your promise.
Yeah. Okay, then we'll fence Div 3 men's foil together.
That's true. That's true. That's awesome.
I like that a lot.
So an important question that is going to segue us into our first segment is one that is a recurring question. If you've listened to this podcast before, then you definitely are starting to get the hang of what we talk about here. And that was for the listeners, not for you. Don't worry. So what was your all-in moment, if you can remember? You know, that moment in your career where
it's easy. I already know.
You already know it? All right,
It's
perfect.
easy.
Lay it on us.
2014 Junior World Championships, April of 2014, Plovdiv, Bulgaria. That was when everything changed for me.
All right. And do you mind speaking to that experience a little bit for us?
Yeah. So basically 2012 Cadet Junior World Championships. I was supposed to do really well in cadets. Went in ranked towards the top. I lost in the top 8. I didn't get a medal. Feeling really down on myself. And then in juniors, just out of nowhere, I had no history in juniors. I got silver at U20 Worlds when I was my last year cadet. And that kind of jump-started me being like, oh, wow, like, you know, I can get some results. Next year, 2013 Junior Worlds, I finally started having some results on the circuit, but I wasn't like ranked at the top yet. And I got bronze at Junior Worlds, my first year of juniors. So back-to-back years, silver and bronze. I was feeling good at myself. Now 2014 Junior Worlds comes in. I'm ranked #1 in the world, feeling like I'm the man. And I lost in the 128. I didn't even get it to the second day. I still remember the guy I lost to. But I remember just walking around the garden outside the athletic complex, all my stuff still on, you know, just sweating, just chugging water, just like being absolutely miserable and depressed. And I remember like sitting down, telling myself like, listen, like I'm not sure if I have what it takes to be the best in the world, and that's not something I can really control, but like for the rest of my life, like I will hold on to the fact that I will prepare better than anyone else around me, and that if I'm gonna win, I'm gonna win because I outwork everyone around me, and if I lose, it's not because of my lack of preparation, but it's just because of, you know, I put everything in, I did everything I could to prepare, and it just didn't work out. But that was the moment where it kind of clicked for me that I wasn't gonna let anyone else kind of, you know, get the jump on me because of my lack of preparation.
Yeah, and at this point in your life, you're like 19 years old, right? 18, 19?
2014, yeah, 19 years old.
19 years old. That's a pretty sound and mature commitment to yourself at that age.
Not 18 years old. Sorry.
18.
I was a few months away from 2019.
Right, so add a few more points to that. But honestly, it's a really important moment because, you know, clearly what ensued was pretty legendary.
Thanks. I mean, I think a lot of it was just kind of fighting against ego. Like I think I had let maybe the previous years kind of medals make me think that it was just always going to be easy, that I was just the man, and that like, you know, just being thrown out of the room, not even getting to compete on like the second day of competition, like was a big wake up call for me that like, you know, nothing in the sport, nothing in individual sport, you know, is easy. Every match is a battle, and that like I kind of had to hold myself accountable.
The other impressive thing to me about what you said is for a lot of people, you know, to be ranked #1 in the world at that point, it's, you know, I would have thought I made it, you know, like it's easy to rest in your laurels at that point, but for you to then turn that around, put more fuel on the fire, like that's really impressive. To just like, instead of, you know, seeing like I've made it, I'm on top of the mountain, like you looked above the mountain into the stars and went, all right, I'm going there. I think that just speaks to the drive that it takes to achieve great things as you have, and it's awesome to hear.
Thanks. I think you make it sound like I was a little bit more emotionally mature than I was at the time. I think a lot of it was just embarrassment. I think a lot of it was a saving face, and I was like, this is what I need to do to make sure that I don't embarrass myself, because I definitely felt like I had, you know, let myself down, let a lot of people down. You know, obviously as I grew older and became a more mature athlete, like I stopped thinking like that. But at a young age, I think a lot of it was just purely about like saving face.
I hear you. Thanks for owning up to it. And Steven, maybe it wasn't looking to the skies. Maybe he just looked up and saw a bigger mountain.
Yeah.
You know? Would you say
just
that's
something beyond?
Yeah.
Because I think it's easy to, you know, when you achieve something, to look around and go, like,
Yeah.
you know, I made it or whatever.
No, especially. And I guess that brings me into another question that I wanted to ask even Justin. I don't remember if we did, but you know, you dealt with a lot of success at an early age, and you know that's not without its downs, like the one you just described, and you were able to bounce back and continue to redefine success for yourself with results and more accolades and fiery victories, and obviously they come on top of many losses, but I guess, how would you say, you mentioned becoming a more mature athlete, how would you say that your mindset shifted to deal with all that early success and then continue to stay hungry and stay motivated for these later, marathons that you're running?
Yeah, I would say a lot of it comes down to childhood coaching and teaching. I just have so many like core memories from being like a young athlete, middle school, high school, and my coach telling, sitting everyone down and saying, you're world champion, that's great, you're world champion for a day. Next day comes, you got to earn it all again. You got to start from scratch. He said, he always told us that you hold on to the past results, past feelings of accomplishment, whatever, it's going to prevent you from like looking forward to overcoming more obstacles, towards developing, better training techniques, better strategies, better, body management, everything. So I think from a pretty young age, the most important thing that was done for me and that I plan to do as a coach and a club owner is kind of instill these, values and character in the young athletes that go beyond just a one-day result.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good to hear this sort of, there's a phrase I'm looking for, but just this wide lens view of things. Holistic view. Yeah. There's like it's not the one I'm looking for, but I'll get it. Don't worry about it.
We'll rock with holistic for now.
Yeah, very holistic view of things. I'm sitting here thinking how it puts things into perspective for me and my own career, athletic career, like this very holistic view of things. It's awesome.
Yeah, no, very wise. Thanks for sharing. Do you want to introduce the segment or should I?
You can introduce the segment.
All right. Like. So all these questions bring us to our first official segment of today's show, which is called The Why Behind the Win.
Okay.
And we just want you to expand. You told us about your all-in moment, and that was really powerful. And what we want to hear about after this is what sparked your fire originally and what kept that fire sparked throughout, the many years of high-level competition. And now you clearly still have the fire if you're doubling down on the sport as not just an athlete, but a full-time coach and club owner now. Tell us about that motivation, the inspiration, passion that you have for the sport and what sparks it.
Yeah.
What does it mean to you?
To be honest, like looking back, like it's really hard for me to kind of think back to like childhood athletics and be like, this is the one moment where like the spark, hit. But I think from a very young age, the sport challenged me in ways that other sports, other activities, other parts of my life didn't. I think having a coach from a very young age that pushes you past what you think are your limits at the time and kind of helps teach you, how strong you can be, how resilient you can be, really helped like guide my compass over the younger years of my athletic career. And I think part of my love for competing and for the sport was just based on like gratitude and appreciation for all the cool things I got to do through the sport. My first international competition was in 2010. I was a freshman in high school. And basically from then until, the Paris Olympics in 2024, I got to travel the world on a regular basis. I have friends from, across the world, got to, travel to so many amazing places, meet coaches, referees, and, just having this worldly view, one, gave me a big appreciation for history, and I was a history major in college.
Hey.
And two, I think just kind of, I was always thinking about making the most of the opportunities that were given to me. I remember competing in places where I had familial and ancestral ties, and my family members telling me that our ancestors that are no longer with us would have been like so proud to see like me competing in the places that they came from before ending up in America and stuff like that. So I think, a huge part of that, flame was just kind of being like, I need to make the most of this opportunity because, if I'm being honest, there's probably other people out there in the world that have the same work ethic, drive, and talent as me that just weren't lucky enough to have the opportunities to train with high-level people, to have good professional training development at a young age, to have a great college program around them, team, mentors, coaches, sports med, sports psych, nutritionists, like, there's just, so many people that kind of helped me throughout the way. And I think that was something that made it feel more meaningful, that it was even in an individual sport. I had this huge team behind the scenes that was like helping me get there. And I think that kept me, one, super focused, but two, like super motivated to just kind of make the most of what was given to me. And I think that'll probably be the number one thing I want to focus on as like a coach and a club owner, is making sure that, all of the kids at the club that I run kind of understand the luck and the privilege to be able to train around, other super dedicated high-level athletes, to have world-class coaches, to hopefully have, top NCAA athletes, Olympic athletes coming for training camps, bringing in people throughout the world, getting to compete first the local level, regional, national, all those opportunities, I think, can be taken for granted by very young kids if it's not put in perspective, it's not explained very diligently that, this is not the norm. So kind of passing along that appreciation to the next generation is something that is, I think, my biggest motivating factor now.
So we've touched on your experience with your coach growing up, and as well as now your experience coaching. And, one of the things that I think applies here is, because I don't know if it's fencing specific or individual sport specific, but the coach-student relationship is so intimate, right?
Yeah.
And at least in my experience, like, I think it might be an individual sport thing, but it affords this opportunity to really shape someone as a person.
Yeah.
So, it gives me all the confidence in you that you're going to be a great coach, not just because of obviously the fencing knowledge and skill that you bring to the table, but the fact that you have this desire and willingness to shape people for the better. And I think that's a really important quality. But beyond that, how is coaching and your experience coaching sort of shaped your view of the sport? Has it changed as when the times you're purely an athlete? Or has it not really changed anything and you've just been able to bring that athlete experience into the coaching portion?
Yeah, I would say coaching has definitely changed my athletic perspective and life, like, dramatically. I would say that as a kid, when you have a coach that's pushing you and you're trying to learn new things, right? When the light clicks and things start to work out, you feel really good about yourself and you're so happy. It's very hard to then kind of step back and pay attention to all the things that led to the moment, your parents, your friends, your significant others, your support staff. It's very hard to kind of show that there were a lot of things that led to this moment of, like, kind of the light turning on. But as a coach the last few years, both a college coach when I was in Boston and as a club coach in New York City, the moment when you see, like, a kid who's been struggling or losing or, like, just things are not working out and you can see that they want it. They're working hard, they're putting in the right ideas, they're focused, they're well-behaved. But for some reason, it just hasn't clicked yet. And they're looking around, some of their friends and teammates, it's clicking for them. And you just see this, like, kind of look of, like, despair and frustration and helplessness. And then when that light clicks, and you just, it's like kind of like they're reborn. Like, that to me is, like, the greatest thing I've ever seen. Just kind of seeing how much excitement and joy and energy then start coming out of the kid. They start winning, things start, making more sense. They start adapting a better strategy. They start being more tricky. And when all that kind of falls into place, like, as a coach, I think it's the greatest feeling in the world.
I can totally agree. I don't have as much coaching experience as you, but I got
the lights never clicked.
Yeah, the lights never clicked for me. No, but tough. Left him hanging.
Sorry.
Got us both.
Sorry.
He got us both.
Tough.
2 for 1.
Sorry.
No, but really, it's, I got a coach at the NCAA level for about 3 years and had some club level coaching experience as well. And I really, one of the things that I describe to people is one of the reasons I love coaching is because you mentioned it with regard to yourself as a student and as a coach. When you have someone in your life that shows you and helps you discover that you're capable of more than you understand or more than you thought, or more than you believed, even if you thought it, that's a really powerful moment for someone. And I, at Air Force, I had a very, very touching experience where there was a fencer who came on and this fencer didn't have the opportunity prior to college to get to compete against high-level fencers. And when they did have that opportunity, they didn't win enough bouts to get to that point. But, at the Air Force Academy, especially at the time, there wasn't a very deep team. And, that meant that this fencer was going to be fencing these high-level people, which is great from an opportunity perspective, but really challenging because all of a sudden you're in the deep end, right? You're fencing some sharks.
Yeah.
Or swimming with sharks. And there was a moment where this fencer went undefeated on a team of national team members across U.S. and other countries as well.
Must have been a good coach.
Lucky coach. But watching the light and everything fire and all the gears line up correctly on that given day, it gives me goosebumps to think about now. And as moments like that especially when you're coaching very, very developmental level athletes, like in their youth and teenage years, that's when those moments, those clicks can happen a lot more often, and they're a lot more impactful down the long run. Like it's awesome. You're going to change some kids' lives, Eli.
Hope so.
Yeah, thanks. And thank you for being so candid in these answers. It's important. Steven has some good questions here regarding coaching. One of them is just in general about purchasing your home club. And I want you to talk about that. That's big news, just dropped last week, if I'm correct, right? Yeah, just dropped last week. So obviously you're in the middle of it. We were talking before the show, and you mentioned that you guys just hosted your first camp and you're starting day one of real practice next week. But overall, you've been kind of, bouncing around for some time, and now to come back home in a very poetic way, what does it mean to you?
Yeah, I would say poetic is definitely the perfect word for it. The location of Zeta Fencing is not the exact same space that I grew up at. It has moved to a larger location, like right next door, just right down the street. But all the artwork is still the same. The lockers are the same. It still has this kind of, ancient European Renaissance kind of feel to it. And just walking in the doors, like it gave me goosebumps. I was like, wow, the first time I laid eyes on these I was like 7 or 8 years old. I spent all my formative years like coming here, training here, learning here, pushing myself here. So much of my life was shaped in the walls of this club. So to be able to go back home, especially with my fiance, soon to be wife, for us to purchase this club and to take over, and for me to kind of be able to dedicate my life towards passing that along to the next generation. I think poetic is the best word. My childhood coach Doran, I've talked to him about it at length. He's really happy about it. I think that I'm going to need a little bit of time to kind of figure out some of the logistics involved with the club operations aspect of the sport. But in terms of the preparation and the training, like I got a plan, I have a philosophy. I'm ready to go all in. So to anyone else out there, I'd say give me some time, but our kids were coming.
That's awesome. No, thanks for the pitch there. And it really is. Poetic's the only word that comes to mind. Just I remember growing up and seeing Zeta Fencing just always on the top of the podium. Your generation was incredibly strong, and there were men and women fencers that were both on the winning side of things. And to see someone from that OG group, right, come back to take the reins, it's cool. All right, Stewie, take us to the next one.
Well, I want to talk about, in your experience, well, now we're on coaching, but in your experience coaching at, NCAA club level, these various organizations that you've coached for, how have those experiences been different? And do you have a preference? What have you learned? What's different about them?
I wouldn't say I have a preference at this point in time. Maybe someday I'll have a stronger preference, but I would say from coaching at an elite program like Harvard, where you have a lot of national champions, you have people competing at the world level, a lot of it coaching is around like maintenance and, structure and, helping them maintain where they've been, maybe making small jumps. But you're taking in kids who are highly motivated, very hardworking, very successful already, and just trying to get them, an inch higher.
Yeah.
And, those jumps are much harder, and they are meaningful. But part of me feels like I can make a bigger impact on people's lives, kind of working with the younger generations. Something that I've told parents a lot recently is that I'm in the business of making pyramids out of their kids. Takes a long time to create like a very good structure and a very good kind of outcome. It requires a very wide and strong foundation. But, in order to get to the very tip where, it becomes, stable for life, able to weather like strong, events, able to kind of withstand a lot of hardship. It really comes down to that strong foundation. And for any kids at my club that might be listening to this, we're about to do a lot of footwork because that's the basis, that's the foundation of saber fencing. So, nobody can say that just came out of nowhere, because you heard it here first, that footwork is that's the foundation of everything.
Well, this is definitely one pyramid scheme that I will absolutely buy into.
I like that. Nice one. And frankly, great fundamentals to have. We've been having a lot of conversations about footwork, even on the senior men's epee side of things in New York. And it's such a fundamental piece of training that so many people, as you get better at the sport, many people like to trick themselves into thinking they need to do it less because they have already done it a lot.
Yeah.
When in reality, you should probably do it more, because that probably brought a lot of the success that you had earlier on. Anyways.
You got it?
No, you got this.
I'm still going? All right.
Yeah. Perfect.
Well, taking a step back from the coaching, getting back into the fencing aspect of it, as someone who's, climbed the mountain, had an incredible career, something that, Ari and I have only dreamed of doing that we can't speak on, what was your formula to succeed? Obviously, you can't, even in an hour conversation, you couldn't break down all of it. But if you had to give the Spark Notes version, what was your philosophy or training, or, what do you attribute your individual success to?
Honestly, I think a lot of it for me came down to how many of the small details involved with training and stuff that I paid attention to, especially in college. I think that I was probably on the earlier side compared to a lot of my generation in terms of focusing a lot on nutrition, hydration, physical therapy, sports psychology, different types of sports med techniques to recover, active recovery on the weekends, making sure I was utilizing all of the options and help that I had, which, some people don't kind of utilize all those. I never really thought of myself as more like talented or, physically dominant than a lot of, other people in the sport, but I think I paid a lot of attention to the small details and behind the scenes. I think a lot of it came down to being a little bit more focused and mentally present at practice. I was big on staying off social media when I was at practice and making sure that, I had times where I was having fun, had times where I was disconnecting, but also had times where I was super serious. To anyone out there that has ever trained with me, I'm not the easiest to train with. I'm sure you guys have heard stories. I can be a lot sometimes. I understand that, and I think that being self-aware is part of the fix, but the other part is that I always believed that in order to train well myself, I needed to be a good teammate and train the other people around me at a good level. I give them good training, they get better, they give me good training, and this kind of circle kind of keeps repeating itself. But I definitely was a little over the top sometimes at practice. So, no one's perfect, but I'd like to think that I took some time and some energy to kind of help those around me over the years. So hopefully that makes up for me being a pain sometimes.
More than makes up for it, I would say.
Yeah, no.
Or at least that's how I justify it in my head too.
Depends which of my training partners you ask.
I'm just gonna say I'm being Eli next time. Like, hey, dude, Eli said he did it and it worked. So I'm also a pain. Anyways, what that answer really highlights to me is that what set you apart is your mentality. It seems to be your presence in terms of being mentally and physically present throughout your training. And that probably bleeds right into competition. And, that's something that I really want to talk about here. I think we should talk about the Olympics, but before then, I want to highlight, a really large moment. And I know you love to joke that I'm a world champion. I just want to highlight that there are different levels to it, right? So I was a world champion at the 17 and under age group, which is great. It shows that you have potential. The U20 age group, I was not a world champion in, but the U20 age group, it shows that you also have potential, but it's like the ceiling is a little higher than the 17-year-old. And it shows that you can really make the jump if things go right for you. You won the world championships at the U20, but then most recently in 2023, you won in Milan the senior world championships, which is the second highest individual honor you can have, if not tied for the highest individual honor in our sport, right? The list only increments by one a year, right? And you skip it on Olympic years. So there aren't that many senior world champions out there. And you just gave us what you claim to be this, you didn't claim it, but answered it as the formula mentally. And I think that translates into a lot of what we saw at tournaments like that, which is mental grit. And I guess if you could speak to any of that experience and what it was like for you to bring it all together in one really amazing day. I remember watching this live on my computer, going wild. My family was watching it in Houston, going wild. They know you as well, as you know. But you probably had a lot of people rooting for you that day. And that was a really big moment in USA fencing history, in your career. And clearly you attribute a lot of that to the way you prepared in training. But tell us about competition day. Like, what was that like, or even leading up to it,
To be honest, like leading up to it, like vibes were not good. I had a really bad season leading up to it in 2023. I felt like the feeling that other people got against me when I got on the strip with them was like fading away from a little bit of the fear that maybe I had kind of helped develop the few years before when I was like super consistently making top eights at all the senior World Cups. So vibes were not good, but I do think that there's a time to overtrain and there's a time to be more smart with your training. And I'd always like to think that in terms of preparing your body to take the grueling conditions that it takes, I think that I prepared really well for the training camp, the 2-week training camp we did in Orléans before that. And that was the hardest training camp I've done in my life. Like, we were just going at it all day, every day. We had a great group of guys at our Airbnb. We were having a blast, working hard, pushing ourselves in the heat. And I just remember thinking to myself, like, wow, like every day I was like, there's probably very few people out there that are going to be willing to put their body on the line like this. And a lot of people are like, oh, maybe you're training too hard before world championships. And I'm like, listen, like, I'm losing all the time this season. And, what do I have to lose? People maybe stop believing me in a little bit. But yeah, man, that training camp was killer. And then, a lot of my greatest competition results have come when I actually have harder paths. And I think that I saw the bracket from the 64. I had just like the bracket from hell, just like world champion, Olympic champion in every round. And I think a part of me was like, if people expect you to lose, like there's a lot less pressure. I think I started a little slowly, but as the day went on, talking even, last week at this camp I was running with at Zeta with Gigi Simele, who's multiple-time world champion, multiple-time individual Olympic medalist, multiple-time team Olympic medalist. He's a legend, and I fenced him in the 16 in his home country. And he made some comment when we were getting lunch this week. He's like, oh man, like I beat you the time before that. I was feeling good. It was my home country, but you were just like touched by God that day. Like, man. And hearing comments like that, it just makes me laugh because, I went into the competition day with the same mentality I always had, do your best, prepare well, control the controllables, ignore the rest. You know, things started to kind of pick up throughout the day. I had a really tough 15-14 win in the 32 against Gu. Ran at him off the line on 14-14. He tried to hit me in prep. I took close distance parry. He started going crazy. In the 16, I fenced Simele. I had a really good match. He had beat me the last time we had fenced before that. But, you know, it was in his host country. People were cheering against me. I kind of used that as motivation. The biggest hurdle was definitely the top 8 bout against Ha. This is the only guy in my career I could never beat. He beat me so many times. I even lost count. It got to the point where like people were printing out posters of his face and putting them up at the club, in the locker room. Like everyone had jokes about me losing to Ha because just every tournament it was just him. For a while, somehow, just the only time in my life I beat him. It just happened to be in the top 8. Made it to the medal rounds, and boom, nothing to lose. I think I was down 13-7 against Salagi in the semifinals. Once again, in my head, I'm like, you know, everyone expects you to lose. Might as well do some crazy stuff. Somehow it worked out. I still don't know how. And then in the final, I was feeling good. I was feeling better than I ever had in my life. Went up against the current senior world champion, Sandro Bazadze, who just won Worlds in Tbilisi a couple weeks ago.
In his home country.
Yeah, and, you know, I just, probably the best bout I've ever fenced in my life, just, you know, from start to finish was just on my stuff. My footwork was sharp. My reactions were fast. I was moving like crazy. And, you know, there's not much more like science or tricks behind it. Sometimes things just click in the right way at the right time. I really wish that somehow I had figured out how to make that click during my 3 individual Olympic Games appearances, but you don't get to pick and choose when you have the day of your life. So I'm glad at least it was in a big moment like that.
Yeah, it was great. And that leads right into our next question, honestly, which is about the Olympics. And
tough one.
It's true. And, you know, if you're willing to share kind of how that experience has, you know, left an impact on you or shaped you, because as you mentioned, you had, you know, some level of, you know, it doesn't sound like regret at all, honestly. It just sounds like, you know, wish that it had gone better for you, but at the same time,
deep inner sadness.
Yeah, deep inner sadness.
Regret.
And at the same, yeah, you know, it sounded not at all like regret. And instead, you know, very, very grounded in reality and what's happened, and grateful for all the good that's happened. That being said, you know, the Olympics is a mixed bag, right? Because we're talking about results that you wish were better. At the same time, the experience itself is such an amazing accomplishment in itself. And, you know how grueling it is to even get there. And, you know, if you're open to talking about it, we'd love to hear about the mental dichotomy between, you know, the pressure, sadness, and all the emotions that come along with those results, as well as just the pride, hopefully, that you have for being someone who's done it 3 different times. That's a lot of training. That's a lot of commitment. That's a lot of accomplishment. That's a lot of Olympic games. Most people don't get to one, man. So if you're okay opening up about
I'd love to talk about it.
Yeah, let's hear it then.
I'll start off with one little suggestion, though, for anyone who ever meets an Olympian.
Yeah.
If you ask them how they did and they say not so good, do not respond with "at least you made it there." You know, that's something, right? Because that's just like the worst thing in the world. I hear it so often, and it just kills me inside. So that's just like a little suggestion. But in terms of the 2016 Rio Olympic Games, I took a year off from college in between my freshman and sophomore year of college to try to train full time, see if I could qualify. Ended up making it. You know, a lot of people suggested that I don't take that time off. There was no team events, so it was pretty much only one spot open for the Americans because Daryl Homer had gotten silver at the Senior World Championships the year before. He was almost guaranteed a spot. So I was like, finish your college career, go for Tokyo. But I took a chance, you know. At the very worst case scenario, I always told myself, if I come back to college as a sophomore after training professionally for a full year, I'm going to dominate the college circuit, even if I don't make the Olympics. So I always knew that worst case scenario hopefully was, you know, still okay. But, you know, I had some good results right before the Olympics in 2016. definitely was not ready for the pressure, definitely was not ready for the moment that at most tournaments you have a lot of kind of not warm-up bouts, but in much larger tournaments you have a lot more rounds before you get to the really, really tough ones. And I've historically been a fencer who started off a little bit slower in the rounds of 64, and then I slowly, hopefully, get a little bit better throughout the day before I get to the tip-top guys. So I think that probably the number one thing that hurt me across the Olympic Games was that I didn't have, not warm-up bouts, but I didn't have preparation bouts with lower-level fencers before getting to the top guys. It just starts right from the gun with like everyone being elite in a small bracket of 32. So I definitely wasn't ready for the Van Holzbecke bout from Belgium in 2016. Fast forward to Tokyo in 2021. I'd had really good 2 seasons leading up to what was supposed to be the 2020 Olympics. Finished the 2018 season #1 in the world, got a medal at Senior Worlds, was feeling really good, medaling at a lot of competitions, making a lot of top 8s, but pretty consistently competing for a spot to fence with the world's best in the medal rounds. And that's what I always told myself at these competitions. I was like, I'm not here to win, I'm here to compete to win, right? I think that coming in expecting to win or trying to win, it's a losing battle. I want to give myself an opportunity to compete with the best. If I compete with the best and I lose, I can go to sleep, happy knowing that I did my job. But I definitely think that the COVID break and the lack of competitions and consistency definitely kind of impacted the flow of things a little bit. And then when I got to, the Tokyo Olympics, fenced a good friend, Kaito Streets, in the 32, had a really good match with him. And then in the 16, had one of the all-time greats, Jungwon Kim from Korea, multiple-time Olympic gold medalist, multiple-time world champion, who's done everything. I honestly don't think I fenced a bad bout. I just didn't do quite enough to take down one of the greatest of all time. So that's probably, out of my Olympics, the bout that I'm most okay with losing, you can even say you're most okay with losing one of those bouts. And then Paris, that was supposed to be the redemption one. I was feeling good. I felt like the preparation was good. I felt like I was in the best shape of my life. I was just coming off my senior world title in 2023. I felt like the fear factor was back, where people actually, coming up on the strip against me, like, had questions about whether or not they could beat me, and I felt like that psychological advantage had really helped me. I fenced a Hungarian, Gemeshi. He wiped the floor with me, if I'm being honest. A lot of people had suggestions or ideas or theories about, why I could never perform at the Olympics. I didn't buy into any of that. Saber bouts are quick. You train for 4 or 5 years, you get 10-minute, 15-minute match on the world stage. Fencing doesn't get a lot of global viewership, but at the Olympics, that's truly global viewership. Everyone I ever knew growing up in the sport, I know everyone's watching. I know it's truly the pinnacle of the sport. And, I have to just accept the fact that I wasn't able to kind of handle the pressure in the right way in terms of getting my best fencing out the first match of the day. Whereas in other competitions, I might have a few matches before I have to fence someone of that caliber in the later rounds. So, it's still tough. Probably not as tough as the team event 44-44 loss in the top 8. That's probably the one that is probably the touch that will keep me up for a large part of my life. But if you do enough competitions, especially in individual sport, you got to learn to lose. I tell that to all the parents and kids that I coach. You're going to lose a lot more than you win. Sometimes you'll never win the tournament and you'll just come close. But if you don't know how to lose and you don't know how to overcome that, you got to stop the sport. It's just not for you.
Yeah. No, that was deep. I appreciate you opening up on that. And yeah, it's really important to be able to speak on moments like that with no regret. And I know you mentioned you don't have it. We don't hear it in your voice. You've accepted what's happened, and I think deep down that you're one of the best out there, and it just sometimes it doesn't add up. Yeah, thanks.
No, yeah, it was
You want to jump
Beautiful
into
story.
Yeah. Do you want to jump
Thanks.
into a lighter segment?
Yeah.
That would be lovely.
Yeah. Do you want to jump into the next segment, or do you want to? Okay.
Up to you, Stevie. We're co-pilots here. But it's
No, let's
time to
do
make
it.
an executive decision.
Let's do it.
If you got more tough questions, you can send them my way. I'm open and
a lot of them
emotional
are,
right now.
it's fairly circular, right? Like most of the things we want to hear from you are just about your story, your journey, what set you apart, how you got here, what you love about the sport. You've answered all of it really well. You've been really articulate in your responses. I think
Incredible.
anybody who's
People don't
listened,
describe me as articulate that often, so I appreciate
yeah,
it.
it's because
nailing it.
we got the mic in your mouth, in your face.
You're
You
gonna
got
have
the
to cut and
camera.
paste that little clip just for me.
Yeah.
Articulate part.
Okay, sounds
articulate.
good. But really, I think anyone that's listening or watching right now will be able to get a really strong glimpse into what you think like and what your presence is, because I think you're giving us a great idea right now.
And I'm digging it. Okay, I
Me
do
too.
have one more question.
Okay.
And it's much lighter, but we like to talk about fencing just to give us and everybody listening a better idea. What do you like outside of fencing? You got anything you do for fun? You got any passions? Smoked meats? Any I don't know.
Yeah, I would say like outside of fencing, where I'm like pretty difficult, pretty stringent, and like pretty like just strict about everything in the sport, preparation, competition wise. I'd like to think I'm pretty laid back in my everyday life. I honestly think the people that don't know me through the sport of fencing and only know me in my personal life probably have a very hard time kind of understanding that behavioral shift on a daily basis. I would say like recently, Karen and I and our golden retriever Jax, we love going out hiking in the wilderness, finding a little lake for him to swim on. We just did our honeymoon traveling across Europe, having a little trip just because we had a little downtime. I know it's not super normal before the wedding, but we had a little time where we could kind of escape and just kind of go out into the wilderness and explore and kind of have a good time. I love Boston sports to my bone. I would die for the Celtics and the Patriots. I like the Red Sox and the Bruins, but like the Celtics and the Patriots, those are like two of my first true loves. So I'm definitely I love sports even outside of fencing. Watching them, fantasy football, playing them. I like to stay active. Probably not the most crazy answer, but I'd like to think just down to earth, hanging out,
Good dude.
having a good time.
I think we all like very similar stuff, so we're not looking for crazy. We're just looking for you.
Yeah, like for example, the first time I saw Ari in New York City, us and our girlfriends had a little picnic out in Long Island City with the dog.
Just being outside,
some snacks, some good food, some nice conversation.
Yeah.
Good enough for me.
Yeah, it was great. It was relaxing. We got to lay in the sun, got to hang out till the sun started to go down. It was just being outdoors is really, really rejuvenating.
Sunshine, man.
Yeah.
It's a good thing.
Yeah. All right.
Please introduce the next segment, Ari.
Really? All right. So the second and final segment of our show is called One Light Answers. And the thought behind this is just whatever off the top of your head, once it enters there, rip it, go. And
one word?
No. One light as in.
It does not do one word. Okay.
Yeah, I think we're coming up with some fencing-esque titles, but no.
I like it.
One light as in the first light that goes off in your head.
Yeah.
You just spit it out.
We're thinking like epee speed or saber speed because those are a little different.
Saber speed.
Okay,
We're
so
going
I
fast.
really have to think fast.
Yeah, you don't even think. Yeah, rock, paper, scissors. All right, let's go, Steven.
Oh, you want me to start?
Yeah.
All right. 2 favorite fencers all time. Go.
That's wow. Wow.
This answer doesn't have to be glued to time. It could change
speed.
tomorrow, but right now, what are your 2 favorite fencers that just come to mind to
okay.
watch?
Aldo Montano, Aaron Salagi.
All right. What is the favorite city of yours that you've gotten to fence in?
Budapest.
Okay, me too. I didn't say Budapest was my answer, but I love that place.
It is a great answer. It's a great city. Anything in your fencing equipment bag that probably shouldn't be in there?
Nothing that shouldn't be in there, but I have a lot of little trinkets and like superstitious little things, artifacts that have been there for like a decade that are like so gross and smelly at this point that people want me to throw them out, but they're never leaving.
Any examples?
They're all like stupid little things from like childhood, like a little gift from somebody, a little something I found. Like none of them are like truly special, like in terms of like they're worth a lot or like so it's just like little things that I just happen to throw in my bag over time and just transferred from fencing bag to fencing bag to fencing bag over the years. And like one of them is a little glass turtle that my coach gave me when I was like a young kid. I love turtles.
Yeah.
One of them is like a little bracelet made out of like soda caps that my sister made for me in like middle school. Like one is a little bottle of hot sauce that's like so dusty now, but like I used to put hot sauce on everything. So like they've been on my bag for has to be over 10 years now, and they stay in the never access part of the smaller pocket.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great answer.
Yeah.
Who is the most challenging bat you've ever fenced? I think you've told us, but that might not be your answer here. Tournament or practice? Who, when it comes to mind, hardest bout? Boom.
Senguko.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, see what you did.
So funny.
This doesn't have to be fencing related, but best piece of advice you've ever received?
I've gotten so much advice over the years. I'm trying to
Maybe you didn't take it.
Mm.
Maybe it was like invest in Bitcoin in 2012 or something like that.
Well, maybe
I got that advice.
Don't take yourself so seriously. I don't know. That's probably not the best advice I've ever gotten, but
we'll ride with it. I think
I'm taking.
Now you're taking yourself too seriously.
It
was great advice.
I have a lot of trouble.
All right.
Yeah, we'll just go with don't take yourself too seriously. That's good for me.
Okay. So you have to overtake the government of a small island nation, and you have an unlimited budget, but your only assistance comes from the other members of any world championship team you've been on. Who do you think one person would give you the best odds of success? Or Olympic teams.
Out of just the teammates that I've had?
For men's saber.
100% Oleg Ochoki. Like, that's not even a question. Not even a question. He actually was my coach at the 2023 World Championships, but we made our first senior world team together in Budapest in 2013, and we were roommates. How they decided that, junior high school Eli and, college Oki would be good roommates. It was a blast. He was a great mentor, became my coach and a great friend. So if I need to go through some trouble, I'm bringing him.
Great answer.
Go hit him with the okie dokie.
Shout out okie dokie.
Who was your dream fencing sponsor?
Definitely Absolute Fencing. Shout out Absolute. Honestly, most people would probably just say, oh, he has to say that he's sponsored by Absolute. But in my defense, I have a very clear memory. Sword in the Snow, SYC, University of New Hampshire. I was 10 years old in 2005. Gary's Absolute store is tiny at this point. It's not some world, dominating company where it's now, all the top athletes are Absolute, all the competition sponsors are Absolute. It was small back then. He took the time to fit me for a white jacket and a lame. Explain it to my mom, who was unsure, about the lefty stuff, about the shoes, whatever. He took the time to go through it with us. I remembered this when I finished college and was looking for sponsorships, and it was just a no-brainer to go with the absolute best.
That's awesome. And shout out to your sponsors, still sponsored, Absolute Fencing. Although we are sponsored and this podcast is sponsored by Prior, it's just awesome to highlight any level of support for any of the athletes regardless of what their level is, but specifically at the highest level. It takes a lot to do this sport, from any type of investment, time, mental, physical, and very, very much so financial. So any level of support for the athletes is really gracious and respected by us here at the Direct Elimination podcast. Eli, thanks for being on the show. And it was great to have you on and speak to your experience at every part of your journey, including this upcoming and currently in play one. So we would like to send you off by wishing you all the good luck and success in the world with Zeta Fencing. And we're really excited to, track and see how that project develops over the next couple of years. We really believe in you, and this was awesome.
Yeah, no.
Appreciate it, bro.
Yeah.
Thank you for taking the time. Don't let anybody ever tell you aren't articulated ever again.
I appreciate that.
Don't take that.
You're so articulate.
Dude, you guys got to stop.
Are you blushing?
Honestly, maybe more than Milan.
But yeah, thank you again. Best of luck in all your endeavors and in your wedding upcoming. Have a good time.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you, boys. It's been a lot of fun getting to kind of talk, shoot the time with you guys.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Till next time.
Yeah.
Thanks. See you later.
Thanks so much.
Of course, guys.
Be sure to visit the Preer USA shop, link in our bio, and buy yourself some sick Preer equipment.
Thanks for tuning in. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe so that you can see more videos just like this.